I have the great honor to introduce Bob Liodice, the CEO of the ANA. Bob has spent the last week sunning himself down in Orlando. He has an awesome tan. Actually, I think it was the bright lights from the stage. But he has been, for the last week, basically running the Masters of Marketing Conference and really getting some really tremendous insights from brands about what they're thinking about, what their aspirations are, what their challenges are. And Bob is going to come up here today, as he has for the last 3 years, and share those insights with us. So ladies and gentlemen, Bob Liodice.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Thanks very much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It really is great to be with you. It's tough to follow Ted Turner, but I'll do my best to fill his shoes to a little bit of a degree. First of all, let me congratulate Susan and Mike and everybody at the DPAA. These growth statistics that you showed this morning are absolutely fantastic. So how about a round of applause for the DPAA? Great stuff. And you know, context does matter. So I think the theme that you have this morning is absolutely appropriate. As Mike said, we were down in Orlando and really looking to focus in on what is on the minds of the masters of marketing, those individuals that have drawn success, that have built success through great marketing. So I'd like to share some thoughts with you in two parts. First, what was my perspective of the state of the industry, which served as a backdrop for the masters' presentations? And then secondly, what did they have to say? So I'd like to share those two things with you. First, the state of the industry. We begin with a look, if we can move this along, there we go, about brands. Brands are healthy. Since 2006, brand value has grown by 66%. Now, it's very interesting. We in this business are in the business to build brands, but often we don't know. And it's important for us to understand the economic impact of our brands, but we don't take the time to measure. So that's one of my challenges to the industry. The other is to recognize that strong brands make a difference. This is a Millward Brown chart that tracks the stock price of strong brands versus the S&P 500. As you can see, since 2006, there is a 40% gap in stock value between this portfolio of strong brands and the S&P 500. Second, media investment. As Susan indicated, lots of growth there. According to eMarketer, 5% growth for this year. Now, not bad when you consider the fact that we've got a China slowdown, economic crises in Europe, economic stagnation here in the United States. But very interestingly, and most importantly, is that there is, in fact, a lot of excitement to the various parts of the media profile. Now, importantly, media investment generally tracks GDP. Other than the recession years, the trajectory of that growth has, in fact, been quite similar to the level of growth. So we have somewhat sluggish GDP growth, and we have 5% overall media investment growth. Not bad considering the state of times. But what we can say is that it is a sound business investment, particularly in some of the high growth areas. Digital up 17%. Mobile up 97%. Social forecasted to grow from $4 billion now to $10 billion in 2016. Interactive television up 17%. And I have a 1% differentiation versus yours, Susan. I have you up 11%, but 11 or 12, we'll take it either way. And good old television is up 6%. So pretty impressive statistics. And an area of focus for various marketers looking to be able to enrich their engagement with consumers by finding the right media that, in fact, will allow them to be able to target and be able to improve their relationships overall. Next up, creative. I'm so impressed with the level of creative that, in fact, is taking place. When you look at the overall spectrum of media that we now have and the advances provided to us via technology, the level of creative just has jumped off the charts. And in fact, at the Cannes Lion Festival of Creativity, we had 4 great winners: Coca-Cola, United Colors of Benetton, American Express, and Nike. And if you go on YouTube and you look at some of the incredible levels of creativity that are taking place everywhere, you know that our industry has certainly advanced. And in this industry, where consumers have increasing bouts of attention deficit disorder. It's absolutely important that we have great creativity in order to be able to penetrate the clutter that's out there. Effectiveness. Creativity is useless if we don't have great effectiveness in our advertising. And it's critically important that, in fact, we advance what it is that we do to ensure that we have ROI growth, that we have business results. You know, great marketing isn't great marketing unless you have terrific business results. So we can be as creative as anything in the world, but if we don't have great effectiveness, it's useless. Importantly, the FE organization, which is an acronym to indicate the level of effectiveness that's out there, awards its grand FE each year, and we celebrate this year Wieden & Kennedy's achievement to produce the Imported from Detroit by Chrysler. One of the terrific advances that has taken place over the last 5 to 10 years has been the industry's level of growth for measurement and accountability. Now, this has been so important because marketers for decades had essentially been one of the most unaccountable functions within a corporation for many years. That was turned on its head, as I said, about a decade ago, where CEOs have demanded, absolutely demanded, the accountability for marketers to ensure that their millions and billions of dollars in investment paid off. But we're not there yet, not by a country mile. So what we've had is a number of areas of continued focus. One of the key areas that we've had this year jointly with the 4As and the IAB is the 3MS, or Making Measurement Make Sense project, which in fact is trying to look at display advertising in a whole new light to ensure that we have greater accountability for our billions of dollars of investment in the display arena. But that's not all. What we're trying to do is to ensure that this is done by a change from the served impression to the viewable impression. And there are pilots underway now to change the landscape so that we can create an eGRP that is in alignment with the other media out there to improve cross-platform analytics. And we are well on our way to get there. But that's not all we have to be able to do. What we need is a guardian, a steward, to ensure that we have a standardization process within the measurement arena that allows us all to have a level of commonality within the measurement function. And the Media Ratings Council has recently taken on this role. They will be our guardian. They will be our standard setter to ensure that we are all on the same page. And specifically, the ANA is called upon the television industry to advance something what we call brand-specific commercial ratings. In this day and age when we cannot get the right measurements for our brands on one of the oldest media that are out there, television, then you know something isn't totally right. So what our objective is to at least get the television community right while continuing to work simultaneously on other media. My next area that I'd like to cover is marketing supply chain productivity. So what do I mean by this? When you think from the very beginning of the creative process to the very end media execution, all of that time and investment is called the marketing supply chain. And it is a lot of time and investment. And our job is to improve the overall productivity of that supply chain. One of the core ways to be able to enhance this is through Ad ID. And as I said down in Florida, I sound like a broken record, that wherever I go, I keep talking about Ad ID. But it's real simple, guys. Ad ID is the UPC code for all digital advertising assets. Where would we be in business and industry without a UPC code? Yet, in the advertising arena, we do not have a common form of coding. Ad ID has been the attempt to try and get us all on the same page, no matter what media you're involved in. Now, what's interesting about this is that it's very inexpensive. In fact, it's the least expensive digital investment you will ever make. The investment, $40 per code. The return for the industry, $2 billion. That's the level of productivity that we have waiting at our doorsteps, if in fact we can start to get the entire industry to accept Ad ID as a common coding system. Most recently, the ANA and the 4A's boards of directors have asked and have pushed to make Ad ID as the standard by January 2014. Next area, industry collaboration. You know, one of the great marvels that I've seen over my 10 years in running the ANA has been the increasing levels of collaboration. One of my observations is you cannot go at it alone. There is no way that the advertisers, the agencies, the media companies, the suppliers, the vendors can get anything done unless you start to work together. And there have been a number of great accomplishments. The 3MS project that I just mentioned before, the work that we are doing in self-regulation, which I'll talk about in a second, certain areas of agency compensation and agency search, and efforts to talk about media rebates and incentives and commercial incentives at the state production level. All of these things cannot happen if, in fact, we don't get the industry together. One of the most important areas that we've had in recent times has been the issues with ICANN and the attempt to expand the general top-level domains within the internet from its current level of 23 to what will likely be over 2,000. And the issues that it is currently causing to ensure that we have a safe and effective internet for all of our advertising and marketing that's gone out there. Now, we didn't stop ICANN from, in fact, expanding the general top-level domain. But what we did do was shine an extraordinarily bright light on them to be able to appear before congressional committees and in fact, to make commitments to the industry to provide that safe internet when those 2,000 GTLDs roll out sometime in 2013. The next area of focus is self-regulation. Ladies and gentlemen, if there's one jewel that we have in this industry, it's self-regulation. It's the most important principle that we have, that we as an industry get to manage ourselves, that we get to shepherd ourselves to ensure that we do business responsibly. We have a number of great areas that we have great accomplishment. Now, we are very, very fortunate that since the early 1970s, the ASRC, or the Advertising Self-Regulation Council, has been out there to, in fact, self-regulate in terms of competitive claims, to have rules and guidelines for children's advertising. And most recently, two great victories that we've had has been in the food and beverage area to ensure that we have responsible advertising to children, and in OBA, or online behavioral advertising. And you could see the power forward ICANN that has allowed us to be able to create a full 360-degree platform for regulating this very, very important area, which has certainly many concerns within the privacy arena that are taking place among public policy groups and legislators. Next up, social responsibility. Now, it's very important that, particularly with the levels of self-regulation out there, that we act as responsible marketers. What we do on our own is one thing, but what we do as an industry is another thing. Two of the most important industry organizations that we have are the Ad Council and the partnership at drugfree.org. The Ad Council is the social conscience of our industry, with more than 50 campaigns out there talking about autism and education and drunk driving, things of that nature which in fact have saved lives. The partnership at drugfree.org are focused in on reducing the amount of teen drug and alcohol abuse. And these are organizations that I hope you can find a way to support in your own particular way. The last area on my list, people, our most important asset. And there are a number of concerns that we have there. But my most important observation is that we as an industry do not invest enough in our people, in terms of training and development, in terms of skill building. In this day and age, with technology exploding, changing the landscape in terms of creativity, media usage, brand building, we have to ensure that we spend the right amount to ensure that people have the skills necessary to be able to not only advance, but to succeed for the purpose of building our business and building our media successfully. It's also important that we attract in this industry the people from colleges to ensure that advertising is the place to go in terms of being able to have their career. And these wonderful organizations have great college programs and allow us the opportunity to see the great talent coming and the young people that will be the future generations of advertisers and marketers. And the last area that I want to talk about here is diversity. We need to do better. Simply said, we have a lot of noise out there, we have a lot of programs, but I'm not sure that we are making progress. I don't see enough results that provide me the comfort level to ensure that we are moving forward in becoming a more diverse industry. And we do know that the greater the diversity we have, the greater success that we'll have. So that was essentially my peek under the tent to provide a perspective of what I shared with the industry as my state of the industry. But now what I'd like to do is share with you what some of the masters of marketing said down at the conference in Orlando. As I looked at their remarks, I saw 4 central themes that came out of it. The first was about building brands, growing, winning. Secondly, branding with a purpose. Third, the subject we touched on just a few minutes ago, creativity and innovation. And fourth, culture and values. So we can't recap the entire conference in a video. So what I did was I took some snapshots of what people had to say, and I'd like to share these quotes with you. First, on the subject of growth and winning, we lead off with Mark Pritchett, Global Marketing and Branding Officer for P&G. Simply said, consumer insight plus creativity. If you do that, you'll win. That was followed up with Kim Cadlick, Worldwide VP of Johnson & Johnson, said, we are responsible to be connecting with people in ways that are instructive and not disruptive. We are seeing such great work being done that is much more relevant and much more conversational. The disruption is over. What a groundbreaking statement that basically transforms our media, our marketing, into a two-way dialogue as opposed to the one-way disruption that we've been used to. Neil Golden, CMO of McDonald's, says, honest assessment and bold action. We have to make sure we have standards that we know what we stand for. We have to assess if we are fulfilling those standards, and if not, take steps to fill those gaps. Honesty, assessing, bold action. We're not going to win unless we change the way we do business. McDonald's, for one, has been working hard to shed its non-nutritious perception by overhauling its menu and trying to conduct business in a different way. Next, Brian Pope, Senior Vice President of Marketing, says there is more value to the brand in building a deep connection with one consumer than connecting in a more superficial way with 100 or more. Forming relationships. Be sure they're enduring. Be sure that you develop that brand loyalty. And Dave Mastovich from the Post Office says, consider the full palette of marketing options that are out there. Let's integrate all marketing together to make it as powerful as we can. And that's critically important because in surveys that we've done with ANA members, integration of all of the marketing elements out there is their #1 challenge. Let's talk about branding with a purpose. We lead off with Keith Wheat, Chief Marketing Officer of Unilever, who is in fact revolutionizing the way Unilever is doing business through a focus on sustainability. And he says it's an exciting time in marketing with lots of challenges, but also huge opportunities. Think about your brands. They are great agents of change and that can lead the agenda. Business can be a leader and brands can engage people to think differently and to act differently. And that's what he's doing at Unilever through his focus and business growth model on sustainability. We follow that up with Alfredo Gangatena, the CMO of MasterCard, and he simply said, help make the world a better place. Work as hard as you can on your brands and communication to focus in on what is positive. And there is a lot of positive that's out there. Luke Downey, CEO and founder of Luta, one of the more engaging presentations at the Masters, says, with every opportunity comes responsibility. So if we are going to sanitize brands, let's make sure to sanitize them and to do it effectively. And he had a most compelling case where his organization serves as both as a charitable foundation that takes 50% of its profits and reinvests them in various charitable ways. Ted Worley, Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, keeps it real simple. He says it's more than listening. It's giving a voice and showcasing work and words. And many of those words are to be socially responsible. Branding with a purpose. Ford. Jim Farley, Chief Marketing Officer, said, we are all intoxicated by shiny new things. I would say take care of those shiny new things and innovate where others have gone on autopilot. So there is much to be said about creativity and innovation in this particular area and aligning it with branding with a purpose. Lisa Cochran says, don't be afraid to jump into the mayhem and create your own. Stick to the pure truth for your consumers and your values, and mayhem can be your best friend. It can create a significant action that makes a difference. Most interesting in that the mayhem is one of the most disruptive components of the all-state campaign. Think about how presidential and staid they were over the course of time, and now they've disrupted, and now they've created branding with a purpose. We can move on. Creativity and innovation. There we go. Patience and failing forward is very, very important in trying to transform. This is from Allison Lewis, Senior Vice President of Marketing for Coca-Cola. One of the important themes that came out of our conversation was about showcasing failure. Mark Pritchard talked about this with Pantene shampoo. Coca-Cola talked about this with their mainstay brand, the Coca-Cola heritage, about how, in fact, they got caught in stagnation and how they had to reinvent themselves. And they had to do it with a level of creativity and insight that transformed their business out of the staid, slow growth, and actually in many cases, no and declining growth of the Coca-Cola business. Paul Mattson, Marketing and Communications Officer from Cleveland Clinic, allowed us the opportunity to see what was taking place in the healthcare community and said, as marketers, we have to continue to test, invest, and innovate each and every year. Also, give yourself that opportunity to try something new. Again, let it fail, and then evolve it to something fresher. What a wonderful perspective. And he talked about providing budgets that allowed for the experimentation that's necessary, particularly in this fast-moving world. And in his industry, where the purchase cycle is over many years, they have to consistently reinvent themselves to ensure that their public awareness is as high with consumers out there in the overall healthcare arena. John Adams, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Martin Agency, says, find creative, incisive ways that aren't frivolous and fluffy, that get right at the problem. So much of the story is about focus. And when you focus in on the creativity that allows you to be able to position your brand and your business, no matter what business you're in, that provides an extraordinarily unique and insightful context that allows you to set yourself apart from your competition. The last area that I'd like to chat about is culture and values. And I was kind of surprised that this came up as a theme throughout the various presentations that we had at the Masters. But I think you'll find some of their insights most instructive. Leading off, John Seifert, Chairman and CEO of Ogilvy, said very simply, believe in your culture. If you have a culture that believes the right things and stands for something and are prepared to live by the values, you can get through. What does your business stand for? What does your business believe in? Have you taken the time to know that? Are your actions consistent with those values? I know for many years I did not pay attention to those kinds of things. And as I get older and I start to understand the impact of culture, I realize what an important ingredient it is to marketing success. Luke Barden, who had one of the more controversial conversations because he was from BP, the company that was essentially at the helm of the serious oil spill that we had down in the Gulf of Mexico. And he talked boldly about what they did wrong and what they're trying to do right. He says, every relationship you have, just think about how you can push them forward to create true partnerships. And for BP, that represented a substantial challenge because their partnerships with their consumers and with the public at large was severely damaged and broken. Mark DeSuana-Rone, founder and executive officer of Effective Brands, said, are we consistent in everything that we do, permeating and demonstrating the brand purpose? And does everyone in the organization feel empowered to do that on behalf of the brand of the organization? When you think about it, do you know your role? Is your organization structured to be able to emanate the very best results from your marketing and from your media investment? Are your values appropriately set that permeate your organization? Harriet Tawa, the EVP of Discover, US Cards, said it very simply. It's all about discipline. Once you know what to believe in, you focus in, and you move on. And more times than not, you will achieve success. And we close this section and my presentation with what I thought was one of the best quotes. Care deeply. It will make all the difference in the world, not only in how well you do, but in your enjoyment of it. So those were the remarks from the Masters of Marketing over the past week or so. I think they provide lots of different perspectives and lots of different insights for, in fact, how we should be able to conduct business, how we can succeed, how we can be successful, and ensure that that success is enduring and builds brand loyalty. So thank you for the time that I had to spend with you, and now I'd like to open it up to any questions that you may have. There's some microphones rolling around. Here we go. Got one up here. Okay. I think right behind you.
Bob, it's good to see you again.
Hello.
Also the guest from Zoom Media. You've got in the audience planners, strategists, clients, and media operators. Mm-hmm. And you've seen firsthand the sea change that's been led by the consumer, empowered by technology. What advice would you give to the stakeholders in this audience about the evolving landscape, where you've got video now gone in digital play space, sights on motion, formerly known as TV spots, digital signage, social media and mobility coming to the space as well and interacting? What advice would you give to the stakeholders of clients in the room, planners in the room, and operators in the room about, team, here are the things that you should be looking ahead as we at the ANA are working with the CMOs and planning that course?
Yeah.
What's the advice?
It's a confusing world out there, and I think there is no doubt with everything that's out there, it's like drinking from a fire hose. And it's very important, in my opinion, to take that step back and really assess what's going on. It's extraordinarily confusing. What I have found among many marketers, what I have heard consistently, is something which I talked about before. It's about experimenting. It's about investing. It's about taking that leap forward, spending where no one spends, taking an area or a strategic arena that allows you to be able to carve an important niche, an important area of focus that few people are involved in. I think that this is an industry that right now is evolving at a very, very rapid rate. If you don't invest and you don't experiment and you don't try on those things, you will be left in the dust. We have seen many brands, in particular, die on the vine because there is a lack of experimentation, a lack of willingness to take the kinds of risks necessary to be able to grow and to be able to advance. And if nothing else, we have to continue to learn. And that's why I think some of the remarks that I heard at the Masters was, it's important to try and fail because we won't be able to grow without that. Thank you, Francois. Other questions? Yes?
Lyle Bunn, great presentation, Bob. So
Thank
the
you.
ICANN initiative and social media really point to an incredible dispersion of media. You must be very concerned about the state of data sciences and the ability to use analytics, business intelligence, to really drive decisions and investment about how to best build a brand using media. Yeah,
it's a great point. Actually, I would almost flip it on its head. Concern is clearly one area, but I am most excited by it. I'm excited by it because I've seen the industry embrace it like never before. Unfortunately, I think we're only scratching the surface of it. I think there is so much to be learned, number one, from the data that already exists. I think we are absolutely flooded with data, but don't necessarily have the analytic tools and capabilities and the time necessarily to interpret the data. And so I think we have this massive information that's out there that is probably only a small percentage being used to make better marketing decisions. That's the thing I'm most encouraged about, is that there is this propensity these days to want to get into the data. I grew up in the finance community in the very first part of my career. I worked with General Foods, and my first exposure to marketers, coming fresh out of school, I thought the marketers were all nuts because they were doing things based upon pure gut and intuition as opposed to facts and data. We've come 180 degrees to almost over-rely upon that data and information. So I'm excited by the fact that data is out there, needs to be analyzed, but concerned that we're not doing enough to be able to interpret that data effectively. Thank you. Other questions? Well, with that, I will leave you be, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bob Liodice, thank you.